spiritually awkward, some woo-woo, mostly wisdom. Today's episode 2. I'm Danielle, psychic light worker, hypnotist, and energy healer.
Saw it. I'm Kaylee. I'm an energy healer, a psychic medium, a channeler of multidimensional beings, and all around awkward.
All around awkward. Today, we're going to be talking about spirituality. What does it even mean?
So when we're talking about spirituality, we either go one of two ways. So we either go like religion or we go to like woo-woo yoni cleansing. The word spirituality, I think, has been connected to so many things. Like it's hard to tell what's what. The topic of today's podcast is a look at the aspects of spirituality and how and why spirituality has been such a huge part of human history. And we're going to be talking about like why spirituality exists for humans in the first place. The undeniable fact is that we all share this same feeling that to some degree there is something bigger than ourselves out there. And that something has all the answers, that we just don't have access to that information. But what we want to get into is like, what if I told you that you do have access to that information at any given point in time, and that all you had to do was ask? What if I told you that the greater power isn't something outside of yourself, but within yourself? And I know what you're thinking. Oh, so this is going to be that kind of podcast? Yes. Yes, it is. Buckle up.
So, I'm going to give a little definition of spirituality for everyone because I think it kind of helps. Actually, I really enjoyed this one. Spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense of belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human than the sensory experience, and that the greater whole of which we are part of is cosmic or divine in nature. And so being able to understand like what spirituality means is what it means for you. There's no right or wrong way to what spirituality is. And that's what we're trying to like create this space of it's okay to believe what you believe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about in the first episode, like your truth is your truth, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You are the truth that you see, right? Like it only has to make sense to you.
Yeah.
So like why do we all collectively have a form of spirituality?
Yeah.
Like
You
I
know, go
It's
ahead.
such an interesting question
Mm-hmm.
to be like, why is it that this entire planet is filled with these beings that have this same want to understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it gives people hope and direction. It's just something that we naturally gravitate towards. We want to feel like we have a reason for being.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like to be like, what is the purpose of this? There has to be
Mm-hmm.
one, or we wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's inherent in all of us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, like, from an anthropological viewpoint of like religions, it argues that like religion functioned as like a way of explaining things that we did not understand, to create a narrative for things that like we didn't have the science or the knowledge to explain yet. And that's so crazy to think about,
Mm-hmm.
is like we
Yeah.
found truths in what we believed at about the time,
Yeah.
and we've just collectively done that throughout the history of our species, which is crazy
It
to
just
think
leads you
about.
to, yeah, like it leads you to believe like there has to be so much more at play than just some information. Like, where did that information come from? You know, the collection of this information for religions and for belief systems had come from somewhere. And sometimes like that is the creation of the sense of morals, the sense of duty, the sense of this is what we're meant to be doing because this is what's right. And sometimes those things have been skewed for power and greed. So there's definitely no doubt there that there have been a little straying from the path of you know, good. But the point of it is to understanding is why did we even need to do all this for that sense of purpose,
Yeah.
belonging, and like
Yeah.
for achieving things.
So like if we're talking about like the straying from the path, it's like from a society standpoint, it's to garner a sense of like social cohesiveness
Mm-hmm.
or like a solidarity, right? Like you have things in common with somebody because like your truth. And then that's kind of where things get skewed
Yeah.
for us is that we're like, okay, so this group believes this. We have well over 4,000 different religions in the world, and they all tie back to one thing, and that is there's a greater power. We have, like, I'm sure that there are well over 5,000 because there's little fringe ones that are, and we're not even going to talk about cults.
Yeah, not today. We will talk about cults in a future
but
episode.
not
Yeah.
today. um and then like psychologically, like if you're going through some crazy shit in your life, like where do you anchor to?
Yeah.
Where can you set the roots that things make sense at that time?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that for a society, a belief in spirituality is one of the pillars that
Yeah.
but we have to understand that this is all just us like this, we are all the universe experiencing itself, so we have to understand that like the spirituality and the seeking knowledge and the understanding of what the hell we are even doing here is is like a very integral part of the human
Mm-hmm.
experience, I think, at this point. And so like when we're talking about that, like, so we've got like the top tier and then we've got the bottom tier, so a belief system, right? So we have to talk about belief systems when we're talking about like spirituality too, and like why that would be so important. And it's kind of goes along the same lines of like, what we've been talking about already, but it creates a sense of purpose, of belonging, a community, like an understanding, as well as like creating inner peace for ourselves when we're wading through the shit of life. Like
Yeah.
life is not always great.
Mm-mm.
It's not, especially during our tower moments. It's not. And we've got to have something that anchors us. And it also helps people be more comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah. Some people lean on that a little too heavily, and I think this is really important that we touch on that to understand the difference between being sure in yourself and knowing what you are all about and knowing that you will always have yourself to come back to and the spirituality should reside within you. Yes, it's great to have a community, but when you get to a point of the blurring of the lines of I can just lean on them and I will just believe without a doubt that what they say is what is true, you've forgotten about yourself and you've forgotten to hold yourself and make sure that you know what your spirituality is all about for you and what you are about. And that's what's going to keep you, living in a more peaceful, confident place. Whereas sometimes you can like lean too much on spirituality in a sense of like it being a pillar outside of yourself when you should be the pillar. I think that's
Yeah,
really
that's,
important.
that is a really good point. That
Mm,
is a really good point.
yeah.
So that brings it to the next question. Like, at what point do belief systems start to converge and basically become the same thing?
Mhm.
So I think we've touched on it a little bit, but like, also, at what point do they become a hindrance versus something for personal growth?
Yeah. When you believe that people in your community and or religion and or whatever, the spiritual power that you've given to someone else is more important than your own needs, and you will sacrifice yourself for that, there can be a level that's when maybe it's gone too far. Like if you've decided that something else matters more than you to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there should be space for them to respect you and welcome you as you are. And you shouldn't need to change for anyone else. You shouldn't need to change your beliefs or your morals.
Or be forced into changing your belief system and what is
Yeah.
true to you. And
Hmm.
that's where the lines blur for me too. And that's kind of why, so I'm not like anti-religion. I'm not, because I do think that all religions hold a beautiful aspect for humanity.
Yeah.
But I think the blurring of the lines and when it becomes a hindrance and when it becomes unhelpful to humanity is when it is forced upon another.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we as a being, human beings, can be so resolute in
Hmm.
our truth and so passionate and so determined, and we forget that like free will exists. We forget that our personal truths exist, and we try to get others to see where we are. And like, if anything has been told to me more times by spirit, then you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. Like, that theme has been pounded into my head every damn second, because I am always trying to like, I'm always trying to be like, well, why can't you just see this, dude? And it's because
Yeah.
they're not ready. They
Mhm.
aren't there yet. Or they may not resonate with it. And like, I had to become comfortable with the fact that like nobody believed what I believed. I had to be comfortable with people thinking I'm batshit crazy, because I'm like, I can talk to aliens. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I have to become comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And if I am to help teach people, right, to learn about themselves, if I'm to kind of guide them along the path, I have to be comfortable with being told that I'm an idiot and that I'm wrong and that I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And
It has
would
to
I
not
ever go
affect
to
you.
war to make somebody believe that like UFOs exist? No. Do I think that maybe people who don't believe in UFOs are a little bit fucking crazy? Yes. Because at this point, there's too much evidence proving that they do. Plus, I've had conversations with them, so shh. But it's but
Yeah.
it's that like, when you stop seeking answers, when you stop looking for more, your personal growth stops too.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, if you're like, nope, this is it, this little piece of information, all I need to know, never want to ask another question ever again. I, in my brain, I can't make sense of why some people do it, but I get it. Because if you've built your life upon a belief system, and everything that you are and everything that you do and everything that you understand about the world around you is being questioned, sometimes that's scary as shit.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's like, and it causes anger in people.
Hmm.
Like, it can go like, you can, there's many ways that you can go when you're entire world, and your brain is melted. Let's just call that when your brain is melted and you are forced to look at a different aspect of it, like that can cause anger because like, what do you mean I've spent my entire life thinking this one thing? What do you
Yeah.
mean that I've put all of my eggs in this basket and you're telling me the basket doesn't exist now? Like, what do you mean?
Hmm.
So it can cause anger, it can cause confusion, it can cause sadness, depression, because like
Yeah.
when the rug is ripped out from under you, right? We don't really think about that aspect of like changing our entire worldview about how reality actually is for somebody, the jarring effect that it has. I guess because I mean, for me, it's easy because I've always thought like this. Like my
Yeah.
brain is like this. I wake up thinking weird shit all of the time. Like I wake up thinking existence is crazy, dude. Like that's how I think, right? But for other people who have been, I don't want to use the word indoctrinated, but if the shoe fits sometimes. So, like, if somebody has been indoctrinated their entire life to believe one thing and one thing only, and then are faced to look at something else, like,
Yeah.
I can only imagine the the craziness, and a lot of the times too, like you'll see this um with people who have been raised in a certain religion their entire life and then all of a sudden one day they're just like, what the fuck, what is this?
Yeah.
And then like you see like a they go through a period of depression,
Yeah. They lost everything that they really believed in because they realized.
right? But then it's
Mhm.
also too, it's a loss of community,
Yeah.
it's a loss
Lost.
of like friends, family.
Yeah.
It gets a
Especially.
very lonely place when you come out of that like the I want to see like the sandcastle, right? Like when you come out of the sandcastle and then it crumbles behind you, like you look back and you're like, whoa, there's no way back in. I don't know what to do now.
Especially because there's if it is true that you're leaving because you don't agree, you know, they're not going to be willing to have conversations with you about your new beliefs now, your supposed community. So that's a good sign to look for. If are you in a community where you can talk openly about different ideas, or is it no? Is it very close-minded? Does it really need to be this specific way? Because that's a very big red flag that I think everyone needs to, food for thought. Are you in a are you in an environment where you're not really allowed to speak your mind? You're not really allowed to question things. You're not really allowed to be curious, be open, have discourse, have differing opinions. This is all about the spirituality within yourself. Are you honoring yourself? Yeah. I think there's some big red flags, the pillars of like whose beliefs are the ones that are running around in my head right now? Whose beliefs are they? Are they mine? Do I feel so good about those things in my heart when I say them to myself? And like, I honestly feel like that's for the best for me and for the world that I live in? Or is it just a narrative that I've been taught to believe? Can I communicate about these things, these questions that I have with the people that are closest to me? Do they truly have unconditional love for me and hold space for me? Or are they stuck on this is what's correct? This is the only way. These are big things to look at to decide.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think it's crazy to me that like people so when people are seeking answers, right? They always want like you always want to sound off on somebody else. Be like, "Hey, I just learned this today. What do you think?" Right? And then like being in a community where they're like, "Don't say that. That's evil. You can't say that shit. What are you doing? Go pray about it." You know what I mean? Like
That's icky.
that's the part about it that I
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah. The
I was,
shaming.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The when I was little and I was going to church and I'd ask questions like, oh my god, I would like they'd be like, can you please explain why your child is questioning this entirely? And I'd be like,
It
I
ain't
don't know.
me. It's
Because I'm like, there's
spirit.
holes in this. This doesn't make sense to me. And like they're like, how do we explain this? Right? Like all the other kids are just like,
Following in line.
yay, we're singing songs about it. We have no cares in the world. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Very big
Make that make
thinker.
sense. Yeah.
Very like questioning, curious. Yeah.
And imagine if everybody was like that.
If everyone felt confident to do that, if they felt
Yeah.
they actually thought the things, but they didn't want to say the things,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be in a community where you could feel safe to do that is the ultimate community. That's where you want to be.
Right.
Sometimes that's yourself.
Yeah. And like nobody talks about the part of spirituality, right? That is isolating. When you first come out of that fog and like you have nobody to talk to, you have nobody to have, you don't have anything in common with anybody. Like your doors to the world have been just blasted off the hinges. Like
Yeah.
there's no going back
No.
once you know what you know and how lonely that is. How lonely it is to sit there and be like all this shit's really crazy in my head, but like somehow it feels right.
Yeah.
Somehow this makes sense to me, and you have nobody to talk to about it.
Mhm.
And that's the part of spirituality, right? That community of even if they don't have the same beliefs as you, somebody that will listen to you without shaming you or being like, oh, okay, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like I could not imagine what it would have been like when I really got into it. Like the year that the world stood still, when I really got into it and I started questioning reality on a massive scale, even from starting from a kid, right? Like asking these questions of the universe. Like when I really got into it and I had nobody to talk to about it, how crazy that felt to me to like depression, major depression. And then being able to so early on into this like opening the doors to the world, did I find a community that accepted me and like not only accepted me but encouraged me
Yeah.
to keep looking, to keep going, not feel ashamed, not be isolated, ask the questions that I wanted to ask of somebody else, learning new things from people who have a different perspective of the same thing. So important. So
Yeah.
important. And I really, that's why spirituality for human beings, I think, is so important to have
Hmm.
some kind of a belief system that we can structure it on. And we're not saying that the belief system will never change because, like, one of my things is if your opinion doesn't change on something, you're not actually thinking.
Hmm.
And that is like my motto in life. Like, if your opinion does not change ever, you are not thinking.
Yeah. If you've become complacent, ask yourself, what can you do to be a little more uncomfortable? Because when you're uncomfortable, you're growing and you're potentially helping others grow. Like the whole shining your light thing, not only is shining your light for yourself, which is where you actually tap into your inner sparkly self and spread it outwards, which we will, I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. Um, but it's people feel it. Like when you're your true self, because you feel confident in who you are and you're shining from a place of like I want others to feel like they can shine too. You know how many people get permission from that? Like, oh wow, okay, it's a safe space to share who I am. It may be different than that person, but
If they're weird
imagine,
and they're accepted, I can be too.
yeah, and you might help them be. Yeah. So if
And
you're in
it's,
a place where you can't shine your light and you can't be your true self, question that. Think about how can you start to change that?
yeah. And that's so, like, how many times, so I have a TikTok and I am like, I'm pure shenanigans all of the time. Like, I'm weird. I'm quirky. I like, it's, it's just who I am. But because I was given that space to build that confidence to be that for myself, to show up for myself authentically, people see that. Do you know how many letters I've gotten from people? And God damn it, I might cry about this one. How many letters and messages that I've gotten from people that be like, you inspired me to be myself. Watching you be weirdly you has inspired me to be myself. And when I saw that, it was hard to accept at first because I was like, I'm just vibing. How am I impacting somebody's life just because I'm being weird on the internet? Like, how is that? You know what I mean? Like,
Uh,
and then I realized, like, I have the potential to help somebody feel comfortable literally by existing. And
exactly.
that's crazy to
Like
me.
existing in your true self, not being afraid
Yeah.
to show it.
And then like,
Yeah. Life changing for people.
yeah. Like, look at me. I'm crying. Oh. But it's crazy. And then to also realize then that you have an impact on somebody else because you exist. Like, how crazy is that? I never thought of myself as somebody that would be like a role model for somebody else or inspire anybody else. I'm just weird. You know what I mean? And
You're a
that's,
safe place for all the weirdos.
yeah, come to me, little weird babies. But that's why community is so important.
Yeah.
And that's, and I mean, the reason for this podcast, even entirely.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like our title, Spiritually Awkward, we really resonated with that one because we are spiritually awkward. Like I used to say socially awkward, but no, it's, I feel different than everyone, and that's okay. And we want to create a safe space for everyone to feel like it's okay to be themselves and to be different and to create a space where you can share about what you see, what you feel, what you think, and it's okay to have discourse. It's okay. You're not going to be shamed in our space. And we really wanted to create that goofy, fun, loving place.
Right. Because spirituality shouldn't be so goddamn serious.
Hmm.
Like, look where we are, sillies. Like, we're like existing in this dimension on a planet that's hurtling through space, that's
Yeah. Why so
like
serious?
like insignificant size in relativity to the universe, and we are so
Yeah,
like, yeah,
definitely.
it's like it's important that we really like we to make a space, right, to essentially put ourselves and what we would wanted, like, we wanted and we needed for other people to come and be themselves
Hmm.
and exist,
Yeah,
to be,
just to be
just to be.
and be safe to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, one thing I wanted to touch a bit on is morals. So keeping in mind, are your morals something that you need to look at? Is something that you've, this is about like the debunking things as well, like making sure that what are your morals? Where do they come from? Do you really feel good about them? Can you maybe look inwards to see if they're led more by intuition, or are they something that I've been convinced of? And is it true? Is it true for me? Forget everyone else for now. You really need to look within and go, what makes me feel good about the morals that I have, and maybe what doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing too. Like we get down on ourselves for being like, I mean, I don't fit in, like,
Mm-hmm.
morally. Like, I don't believe what this group of people believes. There must be
Yeah.
something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it's not true. Like,
Yeah.
they're just following the lead lemming, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're just told this is society's standard. It's so, like, that's another thing.
That's
That's an
ego as
entire
well.
like an entirely other thing. Like, what the hell, society? When did you get to decide how people exist? And
Yeah.
like, what is normal to you? Ugh,
Who's it benefiting?
exactly.
Is it benefiting you to have these ideas and these beliefs?
Yeah,
Or is
don't
it
box me in.
benefiting someone else? Yeah. Are you helping others by doing that, or even yourself? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like there's so much there. And that kind of brings in the topic of ego. Like if your thought patterns or things coming in are negative in a sense of like judgment, doubting yourself, comparison, like you're comparing yourself to others, you're afraid of things happening, you're afraid of anything, you're condemning people or yourself for things you've done. Those are kind of that ego mentality that you need to just be aware of, that it's like something that you need to disconnect from a little bit and learn how to balance that. So I'm sure we will talk more about that as well in a future
Well, I could go
podcast.
on
Yeah. It's a
forever about the
big
ego.
topic, but it's something that does link into this, like how we can start to recognize when things might not be what we want them to be in our own spirituality, our own community. What are the thought patterns in our head? Are they of those kind of nature? Do we need to look at how we can shift that? What do you really believe?
Exactly. So this is homework for everyone.
Yeah.
I want you to look at your belief systems, and I want you to dive deep on what's true to you and what is not true to you, what feels good and what feels a little bit off. May have a little, like, it feels sticky or heavy. Look
Mm-hmm.
look at that.
Yeah.
And this is how we start to dismantle what isn't truth for us. And we break down that belief system, but it's in a way that we can tolerate it, because if we just blow the doors off entirely, like, that's a lot to handle. So
Yeah.
just a little bit of a time at a time, like, look at where it's coming from, where it stems from. Do you actually need that? And then sit with it.
Yeah. Sit with it, journal, write the things down. I know it feels icky sometimes to put those truths on paper. I know
Mm.
I've done some of it and I'm like, oh, I don't even want to write this down. Like, why is this the thing for me? But sometimes even just writing it down makes you go like, I don't want this to be my existence, my truth, my energy right now. Like it's just not what I want. So think about it, write down what you can. Sometimes you'll have stuff come up in dreams about this, like just start to open up a little bit, start to question, start to be more aware. How can my life improve? How can things that I'm doing now change for the better for people around me? Maybe give permission to other people be themselves by me being more me.
Mhm. Finding my own individual spirituality.
Yeah. And you may need to start setting boundaries with people that are not Supporting you.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. I'm sure
They're
that'll be a topic as
hard.
well.
Yes.
Noticing how people affect you and what you can do to just remove yourselves from that energy and that space for your highest good, for yourself, for others to feel safe within your space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's anything else you wanted to add with that one. I think we did pretty good on this topic. Like, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please feel free to email us and let us know. Like, we're here to help you along the journey and help you understand and get you through that first, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
We're here to help. So if you have any questions, definitely email us. If you have an experience that you want to share, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. If you think it could help
Um,
others, yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want everybody to take care, be kind to yourself. This is not an easy journey,
Yeah.
but find your community.
Yeah.
And I I promise. I promise it helps to
Mm-hmm.
find a community while you're looking into your own personal spirituality.
Yeah.
So speaking of community, one of our goals is to once we get like enough interest, we want to create a space, like a Discord space for people to come and find that community, find that place of being. So once we hit like 100 subscribers all of the on all of the platforms, we will then make the space. So if you feel like there's anybody that can benefit from this or who would be interested in, having a community, definitely send them our way, let them know about us, and let's get this community started. Let's get it built because
Yeah.
we all need that place of belonging.
Absolutely. And Discord is essentially, if you don't know what it is, it's essentially like a place to land that's a private server forum where we can just like converse. There'll be different channels, things like that, where we can have different topics. So this is a place where you can come and just join the conversation.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
if you have a random question about like, what the
Mhm.
hell does this mean?
Yeah.
There might be people in there that can answer or give you a different perspective, and
Safe
it's
space.
a safe space.
Yeah. So once we reach 100, we will create that and share it with you guys.
And I'm so excited to see this happen. So
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
hearts all around. I love everybody out there. Thank you for listening to us. Oh, hey, look at
What? Oh my gosh,
that.
that's so cute.
So
That must be like a cool little effect.
it is like,
Little
so the
hearts.
iPhone does these little heart things. So if you make the heart hands, then it throws up little hearts. That's what I'm
That's
freaking out
adorable.
about for those who
Yeah.
cannot see them.
She gave hard hands and then the hearts started appearing on screen.
Heart
Very cute.
hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I love everybody out there. Thank you for listening to our podcast, Spiritually Awkward. Uh, Catch us on the next episode where we will be talking about ways,
Manifestations.
yeah, manifestations, prayers, and magic.
And how they all kind of do the same thing.
Yes.
We'll see you there.
So see you next. Yes. See you next time.